Okay, here I go.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I have amazing person today, Shane Wolffe from uh,
Thank you.
uh, from Yellowknife.
No, Whitehorse.
Oh,
Whitehorse.
Whitehorse. You see, to me it's almost the same. So because
Yeah.
I'm in Ottawa,
You'd
and it's
notice
a
a
good
big
way to
difference
start.
if you come up here from Yellowknife. But yeah, we were just talking about I'm a professional engineer. I work with green buildings and energy efficiency. And I was telling Dmitry how I'm helping my clients. Like I basically the owner's engineer for one of the First Nations here. I'm helping them revamp their water plant because it was over-engineered and super complicated. And that's a recipe for disaster when you're talking about infrastructure in remote areas where you have to have specialized skill sets to run certain types of um, infrastructure, and so that's a bad thing to do to northern communities, is to um, have them dependent on super advanced technology that the capacity to run that technology is not necessarily in that remote community. um, so yeah, that's
Oh,
that's where we were when you hit record.
yeah. That's right. That's right. So again, can you tell me more? How did you got a award, right? Like you got a award
Yeah,
about.
I won the 2025 Yukon Small Business Sustainability Award, which was through an organization called Eco Canada. And Eco Canada, it stands for Environmental Careers Organization. So they do a lot of training for people in environmental fields. And like I decided to dedicate my career to fighting climate change in 2006. I was working for Saskatchewan Government Insurance at the time as a programmer analyst, and I had heard of climate change, and I was aware that it would probably be a big issue, and started doing more research. And then I was working in a field called reinsurance, which is where the insurance industry insures itself. And I started trying to promote the idea that as a company, Saskatchewan Government Insurance should be looking out for climate change. And nobody seemed to care in the organization. And I just decided basically I'm going to make myself an expert in green building, because buildings are everywhere that humans are. They produce, they use more energy than any other sector. They use more resources than any other sector. And wherever there's buildings, there's people. So if I'm an expert in that area, there's nowhere I can not get a job or have good employment. And anyway, the reason we're
What's
talking
your
is,
background? Where did you grow up? Where did you get your education?
okay, so I studied electronic systems engineering and software systems engineering at the University of Regina. Um, but I became, after becoming after leaving the programmer analyst, I went to work for Honeywell, and got very well versed in automation. So HVAC automation, and then I became a consultant working for a company called Integrated Designs in Saskatoon. So we were one of the first companies that did like third party commissioning, energy auditing, energy modeling. Um, I basically worked in commissioning because my field expertise as a automation technician gave me a lot of skills to be able to troubleshoot issues. Basically, third party commissioning is going through buildings and making sure that things work. So I'm like an owner's engineer. I'm an expert who helps the owner and the contractors basically, find any issues during the construction process, so that once the project's done, it's smooth sailing, because that's not typically the way construction goes. And
Yeah.
I actually found
So
that very, very
uh,
interesting field.
I have a first question for you. So my daughter would like to vote for Green. So you must be very pro-Green, right?
I
And I told her tonight I will be meeting with a very interesting person who dedicated his life finding environmentally sensitive solutions, and he lives in Whitehorse, and I don't think he will be voting for Green. So can you just share with us whether you ever, first ever in the past, voted for Green,
I
and
did.
what, because I think you are very well connected with, indeed, with the environmental issues. So can you tell us more about how much you care about environment, all climate related things, and then whom did you vote, let's say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and whom are you going to vote now?
Well, I used to, I have voted Green in the past, and I voted NDP. I don't know if I voted Liberal, but I used to be very left wing, and I will definitely be. Well, I already did vote Conservative, because I just the insanity over at least the last 5 years has blown my mind apart. Um, the
And
reason we're chatting today,
we'll talk more about the what happened in the last 5 years separately. So let's
yeah,
just keep, for now, let's just keep politically correct for all audience, including my children,
for
who don't want to
everybody,
talk about the
it's
last 5 years, just about
we
environment.
don't just the environment. The reason we're chatting today is because I gave a presentation just a week or two ago, about the what I consider true sustainability, and how the system that we live in is not conducive to being sustainable. Literally, everything is designed to fall apart before it needs to. So, how are we ever going to have a sustainable world, a sustainable society, if that's the basis of our existence? Basically, it's not possible. And the bottom line is that the same people, the same organizations that create all of this stuff that falls apart intentionally, that uses massive amounts of fossil fuel and resources. You know, you think about mining, you need to mine all these different materials from all these different places around the world, and then they go to a factory to be turned into different components, and then these different components get assembled at different factories, and all these different components finally get into a thing like our phone, for instance, or a fridge or a microwave or whatever it is, and then they're designed to fall apart before they need to, and then they go to a landfill. And you think of the amount of resources and fossil fuel and everything that's doing that. And like when I got my award, I gave an acceptance speech, and I said to the crowd, like, my dad built a cabin in the 1960s. Uh, my mom says 68, my dad says 65. Either way, my dad put a fridge in that cabin from the 1940s that had been running for about 20 years at the time he put it in there, and that fridge still runs 5 or 6 months of the year to this day. That fridge is around 80 years old. Okay, you're lucky if you get 10 years out of a fridge now. So did they have better engineering in the 1940s? Did they have better technology? Or did they have a better set of priorities? They obviously had a better set of priorities where things were built to last. Your vehicle would last back then. People were coming up to me after the acceptance speech, and they were saying, like, we have a vacuum from the 1950s, and like the washer dryer lasted from the 70s, that type of thing. Imagine from a big scale, if everything was built to last like that, how much less garbage we would produce, how much less fossil fuel would we use, how much less vulnerable would our society be if we didn't make things, like if we made things to last. Like, we have the technology, and we've had the technology for decades to meet every single human need. There's no reason why there should be people starving. There's no reason why there should be homelessness, or the amount of sickness, or the amount of disparity. And it's getting worse. And this is all by design. This is a system that is designed to keep us like slaves on a hamster wheel. And
When did you come to
there's
realize
no,
that?
I've realized it for a long time, but I didn't see it as clearly until COVID. Even maybe 2 years ago, you still wouldn't have convinced me that climate change wasn't a huge threat to humanity. But in the last 2 years, as I've seen more stuff about geoengineering, the fact that they're literally playing with the weather, and they've been experimenting on the weather for longer than they've been telling us that climate change is a problem, that to me is huge. Because if you're telling me that the data shows, and I mean, it's obvious. I live in the Yukon. I live in a place where it's clearly warming really fast. Everyone can see it. You could see it when I lived in Saskatchewan. It's obvious that the climate is changing, okay? But why is it changing? Is it because we've been burning fossil fuel? And I've done research to figure out, like, what is the impact of that fossil fuel? It's much, much less than what I had originally thought. And, you know, like, they tell us that that is the main issue, but they don't tell us the key parts of that science. And they ignore, and you're even ridiculed for saying, hey, why are there all those trails in the sky behind those things? Why are those planes leaving clouds behind that lurk for days? Why are people getting sick after that's done? And it, like, there's a documentary I watched recently called The Dimming that really solidified my suspicions in that area, because I also did some research too. I used chatbot GPT and I said, how many patents are there in solar radiation management? It says between 200 and 400. And the first weather modification patent was filed in 1891. Like, they've been playing with the weather for a long, long time. And if your goal is to control the world, okay, you better have an excuse for the weather changing by the time your experimentation with weather modification technologies are ripe. You better plant some kind of a story into the collective consciousness that explains why everything is going crazy. And, you know, if the best lies have elements of truth based into them, and that's literally what's going on with climate change. You know, the human mind likes to grab onto truth, and like, the reality is that carbon dioxide reflects infrared radiation. That's an inescapable fact of physics. You cannot deny that. But what you have to look at is how much, like, what frequencies does it reflect? How much CO2 can you put into the atmosphere and before it stops having a real effect? And we're already past that point. Like, we could apparently double the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, and it wouldn't even make a difference, because we're already reflecting the maximum amount, well, basically the maximum amount of heat that CO2 will reflect, because it's a logarithmic relationship, which is not something I had ever heard from the scientists that were telling us that climate change was deadly and dangerous. So if this is real science, talk about all of the facts. Don't just talk about the convenient facts. Talk about the ones that are like, well, here's the logarithmic nature of this CO2.
Okay, so because we don't want to keep too long our viewers, potential viewers, for this little episode, I do have a few questions for you, which you could perhaps help us to navigate properly in this federal election campaign. I have three websites here ready for us to start examining. I will start sharing my screen. One is from my union, one is from Evidence for Democracy, and some other organizations. So let me start share my screen. You should be able to see it now, right? Okay. So one website is called, okay, for my Canada, and there are many other websites of concerned Canadians. But then there is a website from the union, of which I'm a member of. And in fact, I was even elected for the executive position last year. But I was a minority, just bugging them too much with transparency and accountability, and eventually they removed me from there, because again, I was not allowing them to work efficiently and not allowing them to focus on things which matter for them more, such as you know, many other things. So
that's not democracy.
But that's unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, that's the nature of democracy. And we'll talk about that right now, because democracy, majority rules. Now, what
We should
happens
have the ability to vote on everything. We have where I'm using my phone to chat with you. We could be voting on every single bill that is passed or even put forward. And that's what politicians should get. They should know how their constituents and how the whole country feels about what they're trying to do. Instead, they're trying to push a whole bunch of stuff past us and hide it from people and use the media to sugarcoat what those things are or lie to us about what they are. It's unbelievable what the liberals have done to us in the last 5 years. Blows my mind
indeed.
apart.
Now you see, both of us are coming from scientific background, and we are really trying to understand how it has become possible that in Canada, a well-developed country, we're not in Russia, China, or in Ukraine, which is really in a tough situation. And I'm originally from Ukraine, right? We're in a country where people are live life without stresses. We have everything we want. And yet we find right now ourselves in a very peculiar situation. And we started talking with you about that in the beginning. It seems like there are two countries living physically in the same space, but they entirely do not intersect or interact with each other. Some see the country has no longer become the country they grew up, like yourself, or they came as immigrants, the country which defends freedoms, rights, where everyone feels secure and
It's more like a
essentially
reality than a country. Two different realities.
two different realities, right? That's right. And we talked with you about the fact, how is it possible that there are people, two communities live in two different realities? Like we see world in one way, and this is why both of us will be voting for conservatives. And I'm trying to convince my children to vote conservatives too, this time, not for green as we did last time. And I also, by the way, previously, since I have become a citizen in 2000, I've been always voting liberal, including in 2021. Wow, because conservatives
Oh,
are
wow.
bad, like conservatives are really bad.
I
They're
used to believe that
polluters,
too. I used to
you
believe
know.
that as well. I never
But
would have been thought that I would vote for the conservatives. Never.
but then
I would have
eventually
laughed
some.
and laughed at anyone who would have told me that 5 years ago.
That's right. And this is, I think, if we examine this phenomenon, just yourself, Shane, and myself, Dmitry, we examine this phenomenon, how we were so much pro-liberal before that, and what has happened in our mind, in our understanding of the world of Canada, that we are now not only voting for liberal, but we believe liberals actually probably destroyed our the way the country used to be. And most
Mm-hmm.
importantly, we're trying to understand the nature of it. How is it possible that there is still a majority of Canadians, maybe, who still think everything, whatever was done in the last 5 years, is for better Canada? So, what is your wake up moment? Like, when have you changed your understanding that no longer you will be voting for liberals right now? Can you share your own experience? How did you uh, stop
I,
thinking the same way as you were thinking before in 2021?
I had bladder cancer in 2018, removed, and seeing it growing inside my body, it made me freak out. And I said, I'm going to learn whatever I need to. I'm going to do whatever I need to, this thing isn't going to kill me. I'm going to survive this. And so I started doing research on the pharmaceutical industry and how evil they are with regard to cancer and cancer research. It's just a great big money-making scheme. They don't tell you that your body will fight cancer on its own if you just do the right things. And basically, when COVID hit, I was very suspicious right from the beginning about why aren't they talking about the immune system? That's what protects you from all illnesses. Instead, they're telling us to stand 6 feet apart, to put up plastic barriers, to put pieces of cloth on our face, all of which is completely nonsensical, but it has little elements of truth built into it, coming back to what I said earlier. Like a virus isn't a spider that you can stay 6 feet away from and not be attacked by it, right? It's a virus. It's floating through the air. It's so small it'll easily go through the pores of a mask. It's insanely. It's like trying to stop a swarm of mosquitoes with a chain link fence is what a mask is. So as soon as I started seeing all these false solutions being peddled to us, I was very, very, very suspicious. And actually, that's kind of one of the things that made me relook at the other side of the science behind climate change. But anyway, watching Trudeau lie to us nonstop and demonize people who are asking logical scientific questions. My sister's best friend had COVID in April of 2021. It was like a cold for her. She recovered in about a week, but then she took the vaccine so she could travel. She took it on my sister's birthday, so October 13th of 2021. And I told her, don't take it because your body already knows what to do. If you take that thing, you're likely to have an overreaction to it. She died 4 days after she took it. And her 4 kids don't have a mom. My nieces and nephews lost an auntie. And it's completely unscientific that you would tell someone to take a vaccine for a disease that they already survived, especially when that so-called vaccine doesn't teach the immune system how to deal with the virus properly. Like I could go into antibody-dependent enhancement and how credible super experts like Dr. Robert Malone were blackballed and censored and silenced. All of that stuff made me go, wait a second, we're not seeing science being practiced here. This is pure propaganda.
You know what? There is so much importance in what you are saying that it deserves a separate episode. In fact, the story, the tragic, the horrible, horrendous story of your friend being essentially killed. We'll talk about that maybe in a separate episode here. And another thing which you told me, like you had major surgery done on yourself, and maybe again we could have a separate episode on just other ways you found for yourself useful. You know, like what is keeping you in good health and good spirits. I know. Okay, we will. We have only a few minutes left for this session. We will restart, and then I will merge those 2 portions together. Now, just between 2 of us, because I will cut this portion. My idea is we will just quickly go through these elections, which are happening right now, because it's a good moment right now. I can create this video as interaction with an interesting person in terms of making decisions whom to vote for example, right? And there is so much we can talk about with you, Shane. That
can I summarize that up? We need to vote for the people who are not going to hand our country and our freedom over to a bunch of unelected billionaire elites. Don't understand how these people think that they can own all of us, own everything, and we can own nothing and be happy. These people are giving us nothing but fake solutions to a crisis that they're claiming. Here, like the thing from my presentation that I'm sure resonated with you is like, look at all of these bullshit solutions that they're giving us.
I have your presentation. I have your presentation right here. We'll talk about that. But one thing, as we'll restart it now, try to not to use any
swear words.
Words, especially people, because I see my mission to bring it to my colleagues who are entirely on the other side of this debate. And every time we talk about Malone or some other things, like which we know, or Wolffe, we have to be very careful in how we frame it. I suggest we only stick to the things which we know personally, yourself. You've seen that. Your experience, your professional experience tells you that. And this is the lie, what you've seen, right? And I put questions which we would like to ask political party candidates. And these are not the questions which my union is asking, or Evidence for Democracy. They talk nothing about any of those things, related to freedoms and things like that. So,
well, the thing is all of the solutions that are being proposed, like carbon taxes and carbon accounting and treating you and I as if it's our fault for climate change, are about controlling us. We're not the ones who produce the products that are intentionally designed to fall apart. I would be very happy to buy one fridge my entire life and let it last, and one TV and one car and everything else. But it's not our fault that this type of environmental degradation is happening. The exact same people who are behind this agenda, who are telling people that it's their fault for climate change and who are using this as an excuse to control us, are the same people who are creating the problem. They're the same people who are manipulating the weather. They are the same people who are profiting from this system and perpetuating this system and trying to make this system even more detrimental to human life. That's the key. If they really cared about fighting climate change, if they really cared about humans and the environment, guess what? We would regenerate this planet. We would build things that last. We would make it so that people are smarter rather than dumbed down with everything that we're consuming. We wouldn't be filled with fear in the media. We'd be filled with solutions. Here are the solutions, everyone. Let's get to work. Because we could solve these problems in a matter of a decade or two. It wouldn't be hard. If we just, here's the solutions, let's all get to work. That would be it.
Yes, so tell us about your meeting with Pierre Poilievre and other ideas.
Well, actually, I met him in September, I think 2 years ago almost now. But basically, I went up to him. I had a funny shirt on with Trudeau on the front, and it said, I'm about to do something horrible to you by that. But I also said, like, we need to deal with these people who are handing our government over to foreign interests. These people cannot be allowed to get away with this. The World Economic Forum is being Freeland is on the board, Carney was on the board. These people are handing over our country. You can go and watch Klaus Schwab say, I know that more than half of Mr. Trudeau's cabinet are members of our WEF, World Economic Forum, Young Global Leaders program. Like, how can you trust someone like that? Like, and they talk about helping everybody, but really what they're trying to do is enslave us. And they've written it all down. Like, they've written this down. They talk about it. Most people don't have the time to look into it. I do. And that's why I'm like, I'm not interested in these people running the country. And I hope to God that the Conservatives stay away from that organization, that we do everything we can to distance Canada from that organization and from this globalist agenda that seeks to enslave everyone. That's what I'm voting against. Right? The Liberals would probably fund the type of projects that I do more than the Conservatives, but I'm more concerned about the freedom of all Canadians and of all people than I am about my own benefit. I think that we need to fund infrastructure anyway. If you want to have a strong country, you need to have good infrastructure. And the fact that, like, these tariff things are basically they're an indicator of how much we've sold out our country to this globalist agenda, because we should be as self-sufficient as possible. And that's what we should be using this as an opportunity to do. And I hope that any government that gets in, it doesn't matter who it is, I hope it's not the Liberals, because I know that Carney's just going to sell us out to the globalist agenda. He's going to give us a whole bunch of fake solutions to climate change, and his wife has made millions of dollars off of climate consulting. I can guarantee you, I know far more about fighting climate change and doing things about climate change than she does. And I haven't made millions of dollars. There's a great big club, and it's not about helping the environment. It's a bunch of greenwashing. That, like, how to future-proof your home. That's the book that I wrote to try and teach people, like, if we build as self-sufficient as possible, we can actually, like, become better off financially. We're less dependent on a system that's damaging the planet. I'm standing there in front of an innovation I came up with for solar air heating, but I don't, like, that's a solution in the right direction, which is like solar and wind. But I mean, this presentation, people have created free energy devices. Even Nikola Tesla, who gave us the modern world, he went bankrupt trying to give us free energy. And this system does not want people to be self-sufficient. Like that slide there that you're standing on, new technologies can make our problems disappear. That's the type of, like, people at one time, they thought that the streets of London and New York would be buried in 9 feet of horse manure. And that's because they couldn't see that a new technology would make the old technology completely irrelevant and would solve the problem immediately. Well, guess what? If we all had free energy devices, we wouldn't be dependent on this system. We could desalinate the ocean. We could green the desert. We could do all kinds of things, like providing food for everybody. We could make all kinds of things that are available to us. And that's why it's being suppressed. That book, The Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices, you can go, and the link is on that slide there. Watch the Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. Those two resources right there are unbelievable in terms of understanding that there are these devices that have been created, that have been patented, and they're suppressed. And anybody who tries to bring those things forward and commercialize them ends up dead. And my neighbor growing up invented a machine like that, which is why I've been obsessed with this idea for most of my life. I remember being a teenager and thinking about this nonstop. You can see that the pictures of this. One is it's moving, the other one it's not. There's no wires, there's no inputs. It's just that thing spun it. My friend whose dad invented that, he saw it running. He said they couldn't keep it from flying apart. But once it got going so violently that one of the magnets came out of it and it got stuck in the wall of the Atco trailer, and he had to pull it out of the wall. And then the other magnet went and dented a steel door in that trailer, and his uncle got a great big gash across his arm. So, like,
yeah. So it's made
it's possible.
So it's driven by magnets.
Yes.
So
magnetic forces. And that's what a motor uses. A motor uses like magnets and copper windings. Like that's how you make a motor. I'm not gonna pretend
I will share this presentation on my Substack, and I will provide link on a YouTube channel.
When you saw that.
I would love you to meet with the people from like Evidence for Democracy. These people who have, I call them cherry-picked evidence for democracy. You know, they cherry-pick evidence which they like, and they ignore the evidence which they don't like. So they don't talk about 5G, so geoengineering, this weather modifications, or any other things which we talk about, which conflict with industrial lobby groups. They don't talk too much about. But they talk a lot about environment, so I was thinking maybe they would be open to the idea of inviting a brilliant, scientist to talk about those things. So one of the ideas I will do, I will reach again this organization, trying to offer opportunity for a debate, for example, But again, looking at what they're promoting, they're not talking about issues which we want to be, which we really want to be discussed, on how to make government transparent, accountable, and of course,
what you have to remember about government is its role is to hold power, and very few people who step into power want to give it up. The truly powerful people who want to help the world, like people with real power like yourself and me, we are doing things because we want to, because we can. The people who seek power because they don't have real power, they won't give it up. They don't use it for others. They use it for themselves. And we could get into an esoteric discussion about that.
but indeed, it's eventually the next topic will be what we can do, what you can do, what I can do to at least to raise awareness about those issues among our colleagues, who are still believing the liberal have done absolutely the best possible job over the last 5 years, and there's nothing better than what they
murdered many people. Many people are now sick and dying because of what the liberals did. And there was no medical emergency. They couldn't have been dealt with by giving everybody vitamin D, by telling everybody to take vitamin D. And here's some ivermectin. It's super cheap. Take
I
this.
know.
Everybody would have been fine.
Indeed. You mentioned the horrible story of your sister's friend, and just one story is enough. I've seen other parents with children already on the wheelchair. It's horrible, and some people died. And of course, we are not allowed to talk about that. I am the public servant, and my employer, they say I cannot criticize the government, or otherwise they will just discipline me. But I say I do not criticize the government. I just provide evidence, and that it's a very subtle line. And I hope with the new government, we will be allowed to talk more evidence, truth, even when it is not convenient truth, when it is not coinciding with the WHO or Wolffe narrative or our government narrative. So may this be a concluding statement for our meeting today. Let's hope that the new government will allow true freedom of scientific expression or any speech expression. And Poilievre explicitly said that he would cancel this bill C11, which essentially it's a censorship bill which will kill freedom of speech whatsoever. And
you can't call yourself a scientist if you're for the censorship, because science is the pursuit of truth. And as soon as you start censoring people rather than disproving them with science, you're no longer practicing science, and everybody needs to understand that. The second that there's censorship on any subject, that is no longer science, it's propaganda. And that's why people got so swept up by lies and slogans like follow the science. Well, if you follow the science, you know that the science that they were telling us is bull.
Exactly. I think, Shane, you just recapitulated or resume. So summed up the whole point of our discussion today. May we elect the government which will allow the scientists to speak openly without fear, without discrimination, without being disciplined, or even the fear of being disciplined for just saying what they believe is correct. I thank you very much.
If we don't do that, we have what the Nazis had in Germany about 80 years ago, because they would they would censor any kind of information they contradicted the agenda. And that is like, we're in a very scary time right now if people can't speak the truth. And this truth has been censored so much lately, it's unbelievable. And that is not what Canada should be about. We should be about truth and
it's unbelievable, but as I mentioned, in fact, it's exactly understood why it happened, because a lot of funding went into behavioral science, which preemptively prepared population to accept the narrative which was convenient for the government, which was the narrative prepared for the government from external parties like WHO and the WEF. So thank you very much. I have to cut here because I have my yoga class. Actually, it already started remotely 7 minutes ago, and I will catch up. Thank you very much, Shane.
Okay, thank you
we will
very
continue
much.
discussion.
Sounds good. Great to meet you.
Bye.
Have a great day.